Hello and welcome to this Core Animator design tutorial for the walk cycle using this stickman project. Let's go ahead and open that in Core Animator and take a look at what we'll be creating. You can see we've got this stickman character set up. He's got a bunch of elements here defined with anchor points grouped together with anchor points for the groups. If you're not familiar with how to use the setup mode and get all this imported and the anchor points defined, then I recommend watching the introduction tutorial first, because we're not going to go over that. We're going to focus instead on creating these animations. And specifically in this tutorial, we're going to talk about using the key all feature to help create these animations. So in this walk animation, as I scrub through, you can see that this character just will continuously walk, and it's a looping animation. When we do the developer video, we're going to show you how to implement it in such a way that the user can scrub through the animation. We're going to look at this jump animation sequence in the context of using this key all feature to your advantage. And we may or may not look at this swing animation just with some other little tips and tricks. So let's get started. Let's first delete these old animations, and then we'll recreate them anew and talk through them as we go. Let's create this first one called walk. Now I'm going to make this walk sequence 1 second long, but first I'm going to put my playhead at 0 seconds, and I'm going to define the initial 0 second point in just as kind of a frame that I know that I can get back to and use in my walk cycle looping. So I'm going to kind of pick the point where he's in the middle of his stride, and we've got his front arm and his front leg alternating and swinging opposite directions, and same thing with the back limbs. So that's a good 0 second initial state for this animation. I want that to be the exact same at the end so that I can loop it perfectly. So what I'm going to do is put my playhead at 1 second and hit the key all button. Notice this little icon shows up. And what that key all does is basically defines how every element and every property is kind of locked down at that moment. You don't see any explicit keyframes yet. You only see them when you make a change somewhere else in the timeline, and then those will become explicit. Kind of implied with the key all symbol. So the easiest way to start is let's put our cursor or our playhead at 0.5 seconds and start animating. So let's take the back leg and we'll put it there. We'll take the front leg and we'll kind of switch positions. Do the same thing with the arms, and move that one forward. And now you can see as I made those changes that the keyframes were made explicit for all those values. And now as I scrub through, we've got a pretty good start on a walk cycle just that easily. I'm going to go ahead and put a key all at 0.5 seconds. And then we're just going to make a few tweaks and see where we go. So we've got the front leg starting to come up here. Let's go to 1/4 second. Make some changes to that front leg where he's maybe bending his knee and his whole leg is rotated quite a bit more. And then we can see that that starts to happen, and he'll extend his knee because we locked down the position at 0.5 with the key all. And then he'll go back. So let's do a similar thing with the back leg at 3/4 second. Let's bend the knee, rotate the entire leg, and get it off the ground. And there we go. Now that's looking pretty good. It's not looping yet, so let's go ahead and click on the loop icon for all of our values. notice we're going to have a problem right here because that's going to be looping at a different rate than everything else. So let's stamp a keyframe for the shin front out there so that it loops. Loop will automatically happen from the last keyframe in the row. So now we've got that looping, we've got our character walking, and that's pretty simple to do with using those key all frames when we get back to a perfect loop state. Maybe we want to refine the animation a little bit. Maybe we want him to kind of rotate forward, so he'll kind of fall and catch himself, upright himself, and then maybe fall and catch himself just a little bit. And I need to loop that, and there we go. So we've got our walk cycle. And that's pretty much it, and that's what we'll be implementing in the next video. I'll go ahead and show you the other animations. If you want to stick around and watch those. Might be a little more jumbled as I do those, but let's give it a whirl. So let's go to the jump animation. And this one I think I'm going to take about 2 seconds. And I'm going to hit a key all at 2 seconds because I'm going to have this setup state be the initial state. And I'm going to get back to that point. So at a 1/4 second, let's have our character maybe lean down, kind of bend his knees, bend this knee. Maybe he'll take his arms up. No, let's take his arms back. Probably. Let's bend the upper body a bit more. Okay, and then let's click on the whole stickman. We're going to try and match up. So it's going to be a little difficult because we're bending the knees. We're going to try and match up his feet where they were initially, just to try and keep them in the same place. Looks like. Let's go over that way a bit. So we've got kind of leaning down, his feet kind of stay in the same place. That's pretty good. Maybe we kind of squish him in the Y scale a little bit. Okay. Now, as we're doing this, especially since we're bending the knees and this overarching group is going to get a little funky as we rotate kind of out of the bounding box. It's going to be a lot more useful. It's going to be a lot easier if we use the key all kind of every step of the way. So we have that initial state. We like that preparation, and then it's always going to go back to that initial 2 second return that we put out there. So let's go to maybe a 1/2 second and let's have him launch. So let's straighten the knees, straighten the upper body, and take the overall group and launch it up in the air. Have him swing his arms forward as he jumps. Kind of swing him up to get that momentum. Let's see how that's looking. It's looking pretty good. Kind of just floats up without jumping. So let's get the Y. Oops. Let's take that Y translation and get it to delay just a titch. We'll also change the easing to ease out, so he kind of launches off the ground, and then as he reaches the top, he'll kind of float, slow down. Okay, I'm going to copy that peak value of the y. Just kind of have them float in midair there for a second. Quarter. And I'm going to take that and ease that in so that it'll kind of stop in midair, and then it'll ease back down and gravity will kick in faster and faster and I'll hit the ground. And I'll use a key all there. I'll have him kind of scrunch up his legs. At 3/4 of a second. Bend his knees. And maybe I want him to kind of bend his upper body as he gets ready to hit. Okay. Let's have his legs kind of anticipate the ground there. And 1.25 seconds. And then after he hits, so we'll say he hits at 1.25 seconds. I'm going to have his upper body kind of impact right after it hits. And then of course we always have it going back to the initial state. So something like that, I would play with it quite a bit more to get it to look a lot, more natural. But the important part is you've got these key all state or points that you can rely on to say, hey, at this point I'm happy with how it looks. I want it to stay that way. And I don't know exactly what I'm going to tweak later on, but I want it to stay, I want his body position to stay that way at that point. So you can throw in those keyalls. If you find that they're not exactly what you want, you can also delete them. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's go ahead and look at that swing animation real quickly. You probably won't recreate the whole thing, but just to show you some other things you can do. For the swing animation, we worked with the stickman, and his anchor point is near the bottom of his feet so that he can, fall over from gravity like a humanoid would. But I put this other group over everything and put the anchor point clear up here, kind of like a swing of some sort. And this is basically just to show that if you need more anchor points, you can always encapsulate everything into an additional one, and just set the anchor point for that. So maybe we would set this initial rotation up here, and then maybe we go out to 2 seconds and set it to this -52. And then we would select the ease in out and maybe auto reverse that so that we've got our swinging motion made pretty easily using an auto reverse loop and an ease in out. So there's just some other tricks. That doesn't really have to do with the key all, but I hope this tutorial was helpful, and that's it. Thanks.